Hello, welcome to another Sunday video. Again, I apologize. I'm still getting over a chest infection, so my throat's a little dry. So I may cough a little bit, but anyway, today I'm going to be trying to talk about what to do when you can't communicate with somebody. Um, there's a lot that could be said about that, so let me think where to start. I guess I'll try to start with like what kind of options you have, and it may look a little bit different depending on if you're living with somebody or if you're I guess if you're not living with somebody. Um, the best thing I know to do with this kind of situation is kind of explain what I've been through. So, um, the two biggest situations I deal with where I can't communicate with somebody is sometimes me and my husband have a conflict and we get escalated and we just can't communicate with each other that well. And then there's, I guess I say outsiders, people that I don't live with that, I guess things happen where you just can't communicate with them. So I'll try to go into that a little bit. My last video was called When Pastors Hurt People and, or I'm sorry, When Pastors Cause Pain. And, I do apologize for talking a lot about my previous pastor. Um, that's something I'm trying to grieve through, so you'll probably hear a lot of examples on that. And what I ran into with him was um, like he had this way of struggling to listen. I guess I would say it like that. And I don't mean well, I think people have different definitions of not listening. So sometimes when I would try to talk to him, like I might ask him a question or something, and he had this struggle of um, he might try to answer your question initially, and unfortunately, it was never, excuse me, the right direction, but he would um, he would change subjects like two or three times while trying to respond to you, and you'd kind of get lost in what he was trying to say because of the subject change, and it would go on quite a while, um, several minutes of talking to the point that you might not remember what you're trying to say, and I guess that's one of my definitions of not listening. And Sometimes there were things where um, it felt like he might have a response that just didn't really seem to understand what you're saying, but you didn't really know how to come back to it, and I guess that's what I would explain as not listening, um, so it was really hard to talk to him and stay on track. I guess that's the best thing to say. So so it began to cause quite a problem in the relationship with, I guess, me and my husband and him. Especially when we were trying to accomplish things in the church, it just blocked a lot of things. Um, so one way, excuse me, one way I tried to handle it was, um, well, of course, first I tried to communicate the way that I know how to communicate, which is, just trying to talk. We had this thing, like I mentioned on the previous video, called Tuesday Table Talk, and um, and I would, I remember a couple times just trying to start off the table talk with not really a question, but kind of an experience that I went through in life, and I wasn't really met with like trying to understand. I guess that's another thing I would say about when it feels like somebody's not listening to you, or I guess you can't communicate to them. It just felt like there was no trying to understand. Like my example on the previous video, when I was sharing what I went through with my mother, he just says, well, have you written her a letter? And it doesn't really feel like there's any trying to understand it. And again, I'm not trying to pick on him. It's just a good example, I think. But so, I think my first route was trying to communicate with him on that level, to share my experience, talk about what I'm going through, my struggles too, of course. And it didn't really go anywhere. And I think there were other ways I tried to communicate. I remember trying to make like a video kind of like this for the church. And I mean, there's so much detail to it. I'll try to just summarize it. But like, him and his wife kind of came to me and told me that the video wasn't really appropriate for church, and I just looked at it like I know what they were trying to say, but it felt like another way of not being able to communicate and kind of like blocking the communication. And there was another thing that what they would do, the pastors of my previous church, they would have like they call it a podcast, where they would sit down with somebody and discuss something that they went through. And so I tried to go in and use that as a form of communication. This is just all I kind of knew to do. And it just, I think there was a lot of like maybe not understanding what I was trying to do with that. But like, um I remember I tried to schedule the podcast with them, and even gave them some details of what I was going to talk about in it. And um it was just kind of treated like I wasn't actually going to do it. And there wasn't any serious scheduling. And there was things said like, oh, I forgot we were going to do it, and stuff like that. So it just felt like I just couldn't communicate. And so I'm just using that example to give you an idea of what it feels like when you can't communicate with somebody. I mean, you'll probably run into that with every place you go. You know, I'll give you another example. When I was working, I worked at Food Line for well, I worked at Food Line and Lowe's Food, but I'll give you an example from Lowe's Food. So, um, when I was working at Lowe's Food, um, I was a cashier. And like, I guess if you ever been to a grocery store, you know that like there's a light that you can turn on to let people know if your lane is open. So I remember several, I think I worked for like a week. And I would go and get water and come right back. So I didn't turn my light off, because um a lot of people just will come up to the register, and you could just come right back to the register, and it's no big deal. Well, there was one day I was working, and I went to get water, and I come back and my light's off. And I was just like, well, that's odd. And this girl, I guess she was the manager, came up and turned the light on when I came back to the register. And she started saying, well, you need to turn your light off every time you walk away from the register. And of course, I was very confused by this. But like, um I didn't really know a way to communicate with her. She didn't really seem like she was open to communication, because she was just doing an action without, I mean, I know she did say that I needed to turn the light off, but she just was doing an action, and without talking to me about like, why aren't you turning your light off? So it just felt like she wasn't open to communication. And it happened several other times where like I just accidentally walked away, and my light was turned off without talking to me. But anyway, those are just examples. I was going to try to give you, well, an idea of what that kind of thing causes in a person. If somebody can't communicate with you, a lot of times you'll act in a way that's like acting out, I call it. I have some notes here. I'll try to read what I wrote down. So when you can't communicate with somebody, you'll probably act in a way that's probably not healthy. Um, you know, uh, like basically get in fear, do things probably that's offensive to the other person. But you do have some options. Um, I mean, I would say in most cases you can wait and try to talk again later to the person. And I mean, a lot of times that is all you can do. I know it sounds hard, and sometimes you may not want to, but you know, that's one specifically I'd say for anybody you're living with. Well, I'll say marriage because I don't know if it's true for every situation, but um, with marriage specifically, if you feel like you can't talk to somebody, you really just have to wait and try again another time, and it may be endless tries, of course, but hopefully there will get to a point where both people can relax and actually talk. Um, and of course, ask God to intervene. That's a big one. And I could tell you right now, I don't do it enough because I don't feel like much can even be accomplished through it. But I've heard of situations where it does work. I'll give you a situation with my previous pastors again. Of course, not to try to pick on them, but um, my pastor, his wife, really had trouble communicating with her husband, and she would talk about how one time it was so bad that she asked him, I think, to paint her living room, and I don't, of course, I don't know the details. I don't think he said he didn't want to do it. He was the type of person that, like I was talking about, he he may have heard you, like, but like he may do something instead, like he may get distracted or something like that, or um he may think something's more important. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know what he thinks. I'm just telling you how it looks from the outside, um but so he let's say he gets distracted and he does not paint the room. And I remember her just saying she was frustrated because he didn't paint it, so she had to ask God for him to paint it. And I don't know exactly what happened, but the way it got painted was she asked God. So I just want to stress that, like, that is a way to try to handle it when you can't communicate with somebody. Um, Unfortunately, like, it's just hard to do it because it's hard to trust God when you feel like there should be another way. But let's see, was there anything else I was gonna say? Um, I guess just I do understand the frustration of it, and I think we all go through it. I go through it quite a bit in my marriage, and I really struggle. So um, it's probably not enough to help you um, get by in life, I guess, because um, you run into it a lot. But those are some basic rules. I could probably go into more detail later, but I don't want to get too long in this. Um, so I guess I'll just say I understand the frustration more than anything about not being able to communicate with somebody. I mean, um, and it's not just that they won't listen. A part of it is that you are saying things that are offensive to them, and you don't understand their language. You don't know why it's offensive to them. And of course, you can't talk to them about it because you may be in a conflict with them. You may be in a position where it's not appropriate to sit there and just have a 5 hour conversation with somebody. And most of the time, that's true with somebody that you don't live with. But anyway, I won't go any further with that. But I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.